possibly starting for this team. It's a very bold statement. But what I've seen from Trace McSorley, the kid's a winner. So in saying this, you can kind of see where I'm leaning here. This team had 10 wins last year, and Vegas is saying that they're going to have less than Pittsburgh and Cleveland. They say that they're going to have 8 wins, okay? So I'm not the only one that thinks this way. Vegas's win total has Cleveland at 9 wins and Pittsburgh at 9 wins. They have Baltimore at 8. Now, my number, here's how I came up with my number, though. 10 wins from last year, but their Pythagorean was amazing. They scored a lot of points. Their defense was the best. They have 11.34 wins on their Pythag. So I divide that and take it and get 10.65, the average of real wins in Pythag. They were pretty healthy last year, so I took away a half a game. Their schedule was medium hard last year, so I give them back a half game. Their schedule is medium this year, 0. For their players they lost, I took away 2 games, and for what they gained back in the draft and free agency, I'm only giving them a quarter of a game for that. I don't think they nearly replaced what they lost there. I don't see anything big. So I actually have them at 8.9 wins, which is over the Vegas win total of 8. But as you can see, going from 10 wins and 11.34 Pythag, it's a downgrade to 8.9, but Vegas sees the same thing. So this is no play, absolutely, on the Baltimore Ravens.
Not cool!
All right, next we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay? Their Vegas win total is 9 this year. Their schedule is medium. Their at-large games is against Indianapolis and San Diego. Their key losses are wide receiver Antonio Brown, running back Le'Veon Bell. He didn't play last year, though, so you can't really demote him for that. Tight end Jesse James, safety Morgan Burnett, and offensive tackle Marcus Gilbert. Their key additions, cornerback Steven Nelson, inside linebacker Mark Barron, and wide receiver Dante Moncrief. Who they drafted? Inside linebacker Devin Bush, wide receiver Deontay Johnson, cornerback Justin Lane, running back Benny Snell from Kentucky, tight end Zach Gentry, a couple other linebackers. You know, the Steelers finally, in my opinion, shed their divas. Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown. They were amazing players, but they were divas. I have to downgrade them a little bit for that, right? For Brown, Jesse James, and Burnett. But like I said, Bell didn't play last year, so I can't downgrade them for what they did last year. Steelers had a brutal schedule last year. Brutal. And you have to give them credit for almost making the playoffs with that schedule. And the defense, whom started out so bad, but ended up finishing 6th in the nation and yards per game. 6th. This defense kind of improved throughout the year. I really like the Devin Bush pick and Mark Barron to fix their linebackers. I really like that, picking up Mark Barron. What I think they missed out on was a little bit of safety. I think they could have used a little bit more help around the edge for the edge rushers as well. Johnson and Snell from Kentucky. Snell, he makes some sense, obviously, after losing Le'Veon Bell. Johnson makes some sense from losing Antonio Brown. Gentry is a pretty good replacement for Jesse James. Buggs from Alabama, Isaiah Buggs, I forgot to mention him, a defensive tackle. I thought he was kind of a steal late in the draft. And so I like the potential for the Steelers. And they might be better off without the head cases. But to be honest with you, they have a very hard schedule. And let's see how I got to my number. The Steelers, 9.5 wins last year because of that tie. 9.47 was their Pythag, so 9.49. Taking away a half game for being healthy last year. Giving them a full game back because their schedule was so hard. This year's schedule is medium, so 0. I'm taking away a point for losing Antonio Brown and those couple other guys, but I'm giving them back 3/4 of a point, a game, what I should say, for this year's season. So Vegas win total has them at 9. and my number has them at 9.74, and I lean over. One thing about the Steelers, they've always drafted well. Their picks always turn out. This is a team I do not want to fade. As a matter of fact, obviously, I have them 3/4 of a game over their win total, but it's not enough to get me to the dance. Like I said, this division is kind of up in the air. I'm going to have to pass and move on. Next up, we have the Cleveland Browns. They won 7.5 games last year because of their tie with the Steelers. And their Vegas win total is 9. 9 for the Browns. Okay? Their schedule is easy. Very easy. At-large games versus Denver and Tennessee. Their key losses, guard Kevin Zeitler, linebacker Jamie Collins, quarterback Tyrod Taylor, wide receiver Brashard Berryman, a couple other guys that really don't matter. Their key additions, wide receiver Odell Beckham, defensive end Oliver Vernon, defensive tackle Sheldon Richardson, running back Kareem Hunt, tight end Demetrius Harris, offensive tackle Kendall Lamb, guard Eric Kush, linebacker Adarius Taylor. Tons of people they got. Who they drafted, cornerback Greedy Williams. Kind of makes up for that trade to get Odell Beckham. They gave up Jabril Peppers that came from Michigan the year before. I thought he was a little bit overhyped myself. They drafted outside linebacker Sione Takakakti. I just kind of butchered that name. Safety Sheldrick Redwine. Inside linebacker Mac Wilson. Kicker Austin Siebert. Guard Drew Forbes. Cornerback Donnie Lewis. The Browns are predicted to 9 wins, like I said. I mean, just kind of blows your mind looking at the Browns there, right? Clevelanders, I don't know what they're going to do before the season, but now their expectations are high. The public is all over this team. That's why it's at 9. Now, it doesn't mean they're wrong, right? It doesn't mean they're wrong. Baker Mayfield's performance last year taught us that he's a leader and a competitor. He showed it in college. He showed it last year. But now his job is going to be to balance a bunch of egos on this team and live up to all the hype, which we know is harder for teams to make that transition, like we said earlier in the podcast. Now they're the favorites. I think it's safe to say that this team's won the free agency battle with Odell Beckham coming to this team. Kareem Hunt might not play all year or might play partial, but he's a beast. For his Sheldon Richardson, Demetrius Harris, Kendall Lamb, they killed it. They absolutely killed it in free agency. But the Browns' schedule is where I'm keying in. It went from it went from hardest in the league last year to easiest. Okay? The difference is the largest from hard to easy as far as any team. So they're going to have a great schedule. My number I got is 10 wins for Cleveland. Last year they had 7.5. Their Pythag was 6.49, so that's 7. They're healthy, so I minus a half game. Their schedule was hard last year, so I give them back a game. Their schedule is easy this year, so I give them back a game. For whom they lost, I only take away a half game. For whom they gained in the draft and free agency, I give them 2 games, and that's how I got to 10. Now, as you know, we need 1.5 games difference in order to make a play, and just a 1 game difference from 10 to 9 isn't quite enough here for us to get to the party. But I also think that Cleveland has a very good shot on winning this division. But the biggest thing that probably should take you away from betting this over 9 season win total is the fact that Cleveland's never been favored in this position. And we don't know how they're going to live up to that pressure. So let's lean over 9 wins. Woo! Last, and definitely least, the Cincinnati Bengals. Their Vegas win total is 6. And last year, they won also 6 games. Their at-large games are against Jacksonville and Oakland. Both teams are supposed to be better. Key losses, outside linebacker Vontez Burfict, tight end Tyler Croft. Key additions, coach Zach Taylor. They have a new coach this year. Guard John Miller. Cornerback B.W. Webb. Defensive line Kerry Wynn, whom they drafted. Offensive tackle Jonah Williams. Tight end Drew Sample. Linebacker Jermaine Pratt. Quarterback Ryan Finley. Defensive tackle Renell Wren. Guard Michael Jordan. Our running back Trayvon Williams. Linebacker Deshaun Davis. Running back Rodney Anderson. And cornerback Jordan Brown. They had a lot of picks. Now, the Marvin Lewis train has finally ended here. And God, that was overdue. So overdue. Cincinnati fans are going nuts there. So many years. Now, this team was very injured last year. Very injured. And I thought about giving them more than a half game back for that. I really did. This team last year started out 4-1. 4-1 before the injuries hit them, and they only won 2 more games. They beat teams like the Colts, the Ravens, the Falcons during that run. Now, the good news for this team is that their schedule ranks second easiest in the league this year. Second easiest. Okay? That's awesome. But what I do not like is they really didn't replace Vontez Burfict, and they're going to be weak once again in linebacker. They are. Now, in saying that, this Bengals team had a lot of draft picks and definitely gained more than they lost. Don't count out Andy Dalton in a pressure year. For some reason, when people give up on the kid, he seems to do a lot better. When he's overhyped, he does worse. Kind of like Matthew Stafford with the Lions. I think this team is going to play with a chip on their shoulder. They're looking at Cleveland having 9 games on their win total. They're looking at Steelers and the Ravens, all the hype that they get. Cincinnati is this team that might fly under the radar a little bit. They're definitely going to have to outscore teams. Maybe bet some overs here in order to win. So maybe play some overs. But either way, let's take a look at what happened. 6 wins, and their Pythag was 5.46, bringing them to 5.7. I'm giving them a half game for being injured last year. Their schedule last year was medium, so no change, 0. But their schedule is very easy this year, so I'm giving them a game back. They didn't lose anybody, as I kind of went over earlier. And I think they gained a game for who they picked up and who they drafted. They gained a game for that. They gained a game from an easy schedule. They gained a game from who they drafted. And they gained a half game for being injured. Extremely injured. So if you look at it and add all that up, I actually have them at 8.3 wins. 8.3. It's pretty high. The Bengals, like I said, Andy Dalton's going to play with a chip on his shoulder. And the thing about Marvin Lewis, do you think it was really a downgrade to switch him out? To move away from him? When their new coach, Zach Taylor, is going to come in and try to make a difference? They still got guys like A.J. Green. This team is going to fly under the radar. And looking at their second easiest schedule, there's a play here. And this play is going to be on the over. Oh, yeah! Let's move on to the AFC West. We saw this division as very competitive last year. Very. The AFC West had 2 playoff teams who were ranked quite high. We had the Chiefs blowing many teams out without needing a good defense at all. And the Chargers kind of playing all-around solid football. They're kind of ranked 5th to 10th in almost every category. The Raiders and Broncos this year should be improved for this 2019